How do you identify blood quantum?
Well, I didn't really know what it was until I got older, and I just knew that it was the Indian. And then when I got involved with Dennis Banks and Russell Means, those guys back in the 70s, they talked about it, blood quantum, and that's the first time I really thought about it and what it meant. To me, it was a means to eradicate us, lessen us as a people. You start out a full blood, you marry outside your tribe, you're only half, the children are half, and then it goes all the way down. Pretty soon there's no Indian. And that's kind of what their philosophy was. and I agreed with that, and I thought that one of these days we're going to marry ourselves out of being Indian. Then what are we going to be?
Blood quantum, it has nothing to do with us culturally, but it has to do with what the government organized in. I can't speak on that, but like blood quantum laws for the culture, for our people, yeah, it's just what God gave us.
By numbers, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, but now they added into 1/8.
Well, I identify with it by what the U.S. government tells me to. We all have these enrollment cards that are issued by the Fort Belknap Indian community, and that's where I'm enrolled. And on there it says DIB, degree of Indian blood, and the U.S. government tells me how much Indian I am.
I think blood quantum is something in your blood that explains your ethnicity and your nationality.
The United States government has made this blood quantum, and we have to abide by it in order to get federal funding to get, different things. But it also is giving the government the opportunity to breed us out of existence, and that's happening right now.
It's a very complicated answer to what seems to be a simple question. Obviously, when we look at blood quantum now, most tribes are at either you have to be a half or a quarter, depending on which tribe and whatnot. I know our tribes here at Fort Belknap, I believe we require a quarter, but it's a combined of, you could be 1/8 Gros Ventre and 1/8 Assiniboine to make up 1/4. So my personal beliefs right now as to what blood quantum is, I guess a verifiable amount of quote unquote indigenous or Native American or Indian blood that's verifiable through either tracing ancestry or family lineage.
I don't really care for blood quantum. I feel like it's derogatory to Native Americans. I mean, when I think about, I guess there's the American Kennel Association, there's the American Quarter Horse Association, and there's Native Americans, and we have to define who we are. For example, I'm half Aaniiih, I'm Aaniiih, I'm Inun'ah, or Arapaho, I'm Naki'ne, I'm Nakoda, I'm English, Irish, and German. So technically I'm 1/2 Native American, federally recognized. Can you tell what half that is? We're an inclusive people. Whether you're 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, on and on, 1/32, there's still blood of your ancestor that flows through you. There's still that identity.
What are ways Native Indigenous people can address blood quantum?
I am a big supporter of the idea of absorbing other federally recognized tribal blood into our own. But there's going to be a lot of people who are opposed to that. There's probably 10, 15 different other potential ways that people want to bring up and look at dealing with how we combat and how we sustain our people through blood quantum. And right now, honestly, we have no choice because we are under the rule of the United States. Basically, we have to follow their rules. And as of right now, we have no choice. There is no choice in the matter. So we have to maintain blood quantum in one form or another.
As Indian people, we're sovereign entities. We have a unique relationship with the United States government, and sovereignty means the authority. And so that's the authority to create and enact your own laws. And so we have that right. We could change it to whatever we want.
What is your opinion of tribal IDs?
Kind of just have to have them, and I mean, like, they updated them so they're kind of pretty with the little sunsets and everything. And Snake Butte behind it, so it's pretty cool. But
my opinion on the tribal ID is that they're kind of pointless. Like, we shouldn't have to carry around a card to show us how much Native we are.
You go to even the tribal office, you get a little card that says you're a enrolled member and this much. I have Grovon, Assiniboine, Sioux, and White Man. It's kind of a necessary thing now if you want to go to school. I went to school with the BIA grant in college, and I'm thankful for that because I would never have gone otherwise. I'd never have gone to school, probably. But I don't like the idea of it really identifying us as, as a people.
I have no problem with tribal IDs. Actually, I think they're a great benefit. Even though we're within the United States, we're still sovereign nations, and so our tribal IDs kind of help us to assert that sovereign status.
I think it's very important when we go someplace, when we go off the reservation. And 1955, you weren't able to go off the reservation without some means of identifying who you were. And I think it's a good thing because if you leave the reservation and for any reason the patrolmen stop you, you have that. Like if you got eagle feathers or different parts of your regalia, you have your ID saying that, hey, I can carry these.
I don't mind tribal IDs. I kind of like mine. When I used to travel and I'd show my ID, my tribal ID, people would get real interested in Native people. Kind of an introduction into.
I like the tribal IDs. They were actually generated from here. The recognition of that in our state. I like putting my tribal ID out when I need to identify myself because that's who I am. I'm Aaniiih from Fort Belknap. And so I like the ideas. I just don't like flipping it over and saying, oh, I'm a quarter this or 7/30 seconds this or whatever. That's the part that I'm not a big fan of.
If you weren't allowed to get a tribal ID card because you didn't have enough Native Indigenous blood, how would that make you feel?
It would make me feel misunderstood about it. Like, I wouldn't know what to think. Like, what do they want us to do? Because of enrollment with that part. But it's just, man, I never thought about that. Yeah. That's a good question. How would that make me feel?
That already happened. One of my brothers was in the army, and he was stationed in Korea, and he met his wife there, a full-blood Korean. They got married. They had their children, and then their children all married white, and then his great-grandchildren are not enrollable. In only 4 generations that happened. So when I was enrolling my grandson, I had to use Fort Peck Assiniboine blood to get him enrolled here because he didn't have enough blood from here. So it's going to impact everybody. That day is coming when we're all going to be impacted by this blood quantum thing.
What defines you as a Native Indigenous person?
To me, I'm an Indian. I can't be nothing else, whether you're Indigenous or not. That's your choice.
If you are Indigenous, what matters most is if you put in the effort to learn your language, learn your ceremonies. It doesn't really matter how Indian you are, you know, according to these, like our tribal IDs or blood quantum.
Knowing my tribe, the two tribes that I'm part Bovan and part of Assiniboine, knowing my people, I know my grandchildren can trace back 7 generations. I like that. I mean, other people can go back 2,000 years, but I feel like the Creator blessed me and allowed me to be Indian. He liked me extra good, and he gave me the blessing of being a Native. I love it.
For me personally, what makes me feel that I'm Indigenous is that I have my customs and traditions from both sides of my family that I have been raised in with since I was born, and that's what makes me who I am.
So it all depends on how the person lives, what's in his heart, what makes you Indigenous. It isn't that license plate, but it's what's in your heart.
When did culture become a big part of your life?
When I was about 11 years old. Well, it was always, because the old man, he got up every day at 5 and went outside and prayed. And a lot of times he took me wherever he went, you know, to different ceremonies and stuff. So it was always a part of my life.
Culture has always been there for me since literally like the day I was born, but it took like a great impact on me when I started getting older. This was probably like maybe 12 or 13, and my mom started teaching me how to speak Nakoda, and I started learning more about where I come from and other tribes I come from, and just like learn more about ceremonies.
I don't know how, as Native people, Indian people, we could separate culture from our life. We're born spiritually, we're spiritual people. We're connected to the earth, we're connected to plants, animals, everything that flies in the water, in the sky, we're connected to all of it. So I don't know how we could separate that from our life. Especially as Native people, we're taught from before we're born, really. When I was carrying my daughter and go to a powwow, she'd dance. And then when she was born, she'd hear those drums and she'd dance. She'd start dancing. So before we're born, we know who we are.
I started to become more cultural when I was around my dad and we moved here, starting to see more of the Native people and the reservation, and I learned that it is a really beautiful thing to be a part of.
Our language defines us. That's the determiner of culture. Our Aaniiih, our white clay language, our Nakota Aob or Nakota language, it defines everything in our world, our place, our clothes, our kinship, our foods, you know, everything, our moralities, our cultural norms, our spirituality and the ceremonies, all of it defines us who we are.
Culture has always been a part of my life. I can remember when I was younger, I would be at ceremonies. I'm just very grateful that I grew up around these ways and this way of life, because it really helps a person. It really helps a person in how they grow and how they carry on with their life and just the way they are, you know.
Is there a message you would like to pass on to future generations?
For you young people, I would say take the time to go and start visiting with not necessarily elders, but knowledge keepers, people that have our stories, that people have our teachings. Because a lot of times it's not necessarily elderly people or elders that carry this knowledge. There's some younger people in our community who have been fortunate enough to be exposed and taught these things. And I really encourage you young folks to be proactive, because in a blink of an eye, 10 years is gonna go by, and another blink of an eye, 20 years is gonna go by, and then you guys are gonna be the ones that are gonna be sitting in my chair. And it happens very fast. It happens very, very fast.
Learn what you can. You're an Indian. Be proud of who you are.
Talk to elders, talk to your parents, because they're not going to be here very long. And then we're going to be the next generation. And then we have to step up about and tell our grandkids and our children about who we are and where we come from.
Don't be afraid. Be proud. We say, Thanu biatse. Stand straight up. Be erect. Be trustworthy. Be honest. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid. My grandpa used to tell me that when I go dance Indian. He'd say, "Gek given, itsini hey." He'd say, "Give her heck. Don't be afraid." That's if there's one thing, let that ring in their ears, you know, as youth. So.
When you approached me about talking about this, I was really impressed. I was telling all my old ladies, do you know that this young girl came to my house and wanted to talk about blood quantum? Who would have thought a group of young people would even have that thought in your head? It's really good. Everyone here, you're going to leave here today and you're going to think about this. You're going to be the ones to change the world.
There you go.
Don't forget to take the lens off.